In a sun-baked village surrounded by tall baobab trees and red earth paths lived a young girl named Amina, known by everyone for her sharp mind and gentle heart. While other children played by the river, Amina often sat beside the elders, listening carefully to their stories and debates. Her widowed mother sold woven baskets in the marketplace, and though they had little, Amina never complained. The village, however, suffered under the rule of a distant king whose palace stood beyond the golden hills. His taxes grew heavier each season, and the people whispered their worries at night around cooking fires. Farmers struggled to keep their harvest, traders hid their coins, and fear slowly replaced joy. One evening, as the villagers gathered to discuss their hardship, Amina stood quietly among them, her eyes thoughtful. When the elders fell silent, unsure of what to do, the young girl spoke softly but clearly. She suggested that someone must go to the king and speak truth to his face. The crowd murmured in shock. No one dared challenge the ruler. Yet in Amina's calm voice was a confidence that stirred hope in their tired hearts. The next morning, wrapped in a simple cloth and carrying only her courage, Amina walked the long dusty road to the king's palace. The journey was filled with the songs of birds and the distant beat of village drums, but her mind remained steady. When she arrived, the palace guards laughed at the sight of a small village girl demanding to see the king. But Amina did not tremble. She spoke with such clarity and respect that her words caught the attention of a passing royal advisor who escorted her inside. The king sat on a grand carved throne, decorated with ivory and gold, his expression stern and impatient. He asked why a mere child had interrupted his court. Amina bowed deeply and replied that she came bearing a riddle, one that could reveal the strength of a ruler. Intrigued and amused, the king allowed her to speak. The court fell silent as the young girl prepared to present a challenge that would test not only the king's wisdom, but also his heart. Amina raised her head and began her riddle in a steady voice. She spoke of a mighty tree that fed all the animals of the forest with its fruit, yet demanded so much in return that the animals grew weak and hungry. Eventually, the tree stood tall but alone, surrounded by suffering creatures. She then asked the king what would happen to such a tree. The court buzzed with whispers as the king considered her words. Proudly, he answered that the tree would eventually wither, for it could not survive without the life around it. Amina nodded gently and stepped closer. She explained that a kingdom was like that tree, and its people were the roots that kept it alive. If the ruler drained their strength with greed, the kingdom itself would fall. Her words spread through the hall like a sudden wind. The advisors exchanged uneasy glances, and for the first time, the king's confident expression began to fade. The king sat in silence, struck by the truth carried in Amina's simple story. He looked at the faces of his court and then out toward the distant hills where his people lived. In that moment, he saw not a child before him, but the voice of his suffering kingdom. Slowly, he rose from his throne and declared that the heavy taxes would be reduced and fairness restored. A wave of relief swept through the palace. Turning to Amina, the king thanked her for her courage and wisdom, admitting that no advisor had spoken to him so honestly. He offered her riches, but the girl humbly asked only for peace and prosperity for her village. The king granted her wish. When Amina returned home, the villagers welcomed her with songs and dancing, their burdens lifted and their hope renewed. From that day on, her story traveled from village to village, reminding all who heard it that even the smallest voice, when guided by wisdom and courage, can change the heart of power.